Out at Bradwell, if it's absolutely chucking it down, which it won't be, we will. We've still got the hole booked, so if it's absolutely pouring down with rain, if you check the thread, we'll make a decision there and then. If I take your phone number, if you take my phone number, then we can be in contact. But if it's absolutely chucking it down, then we'll meet up here and we'll do something here. Yeah, we can paint with light in here or something like that. Yeah, so whatever anyway.
Plastic bag over the camera, plastic bag over the flash.
And then next Saturday is the North Essex DPI competition, which is, well, sorry, Saturday week, yeah, the 10th, which is also here. We've got the whole church, so the competition will actually be in the worship area, which they're actually, I know, we can wreck the place. So I think Lisa's going to post something up about volunteers to do some nibbly bits and everything. We're not going to go overboard like we did last year, just a few sort of nibbles and things for our visitors. So and that's that. And then the week after that, I think is competition night again. I know. Anyway, tonight we've got Daniel Bridge, who's going to give us his little talk on macro, I believe.
Close up macro.
Close up macro. Really nice. So if we would like to welcome Daniel.
Good evening, everyone. I'll do a little intro and then we can have the lights out and stuff, I suppose, and see how you all feel. Yeah, my name's Daniel Bridge. Thank you, Dave, for not saying Bridges. A lot of people do, but yeah, Daniel Bridge. I'm a semi-professional nature photographer. I work 3 days a week for Essex Wildlife Trust. The rest of the time I do mainly nature photography, and income-wise, vast majority of my income is from tuition. So I do one-day workshops, one-to-one tuition, or private tuition, so it can be 1s, 2s, 3s, even private workshops for camera clubs, if that sort of thing takes your fancy. I've been self-employed now for 10.5 years, and yeah, that's pretty much. I really got into macro when I first went digital, really. I used to dabble with the odd macro stuff. Always one. Dabbled with macro when I was shooting on film. Once I started using digital, really got into it. That first summer that I had a digital SLR, I was using extension tubes with 50mm lens. I'll show you a few photos, a couple of photos, 2 or 3 perhaps in here that date from that sort of period, and using the extension tubes and stuff. And then I got my macro lens that autumn and went on from there really. So I do a lot of macro. I don't specialise in macro, I do a lot of macro, and I like to think that I do it reasonably well. I do workshops on it, so hopefully I'll do it reasonably well. And there's bits on flash on here, and I use a very cheap flash gun setup, literally very cheap flash gun. Yes, sir.
That's what you do on your 3 days with the Wildlife Trust?
I'm the assistant centre manager at Bedford's Park near Romford.
Oh, right.
So it's mainly working in the visitor centre. Last night I was scaring children. That was fun. Scaring mums as well as children. I guess I got the biggest screams out of the parents. Sorry?
Middle name's not Jimmy, is it?
No. So, yeah, I certainly don't specialise in macro, but I do a lot of it. I'm a very opportunistic photographer, so I'll go out for a walk. If I'm on my own, I'll go out for a walk, see what I see and go from there. And a lot of the time it's macro, sometimes it might be animals and things. You know, a lot of the time it's perhaps landscapes, but yeah, I do tend to come to macro a fair amount. So I might as well carry on with this. So lights. Thanks very much. So close up macro next. A lot of the time, I think when people are first starting out with this is sort of expanded from my workshop. Close up for me is just using whatever lens you happen to have on the camera or in your bag, closer than you might normally do. So your kit lens, if you're using say an 18-55 zoom on your camera, probably find it focuses down to about 7 or 8 inches from the front of the lens. and you can get some decent close-up photos. They're not macro, they're not showing everything about your subject if it's a beetle or something like that, but you can use it certainly for things like fungi and larger dragonflies, stuff like that. My 300mm lens only focuses down to 4.5 feet, something like that, but I use that at the minimum focus distance quite a lot for, again, toadstools, dragonflies and things. So it's close up in that sense, so you're using your lenses closer than you might normally do so. Macro, strictly speaking for me, means life size. So if you were to take a picture of a wasp, and that wasp is 20mm long, the image that's forming on your sensor or on your film is 20mm long as well. If you're shooting on slide film, once you get your slide back and hold that slide up next to a real wasp, you'll see that the actual slide, the wasp on the slide is the same size as the wasp in real life. So it's life size, 1-to-1 magnification. Once you project it up here, it's a massive wasp, but it's yeah, that's why I call it close-up and macro. A lot of what I do isn't true macro stuff, it's just close-ups. So I think a lot of time when people start with close-ups, especially when you think of it in that sense, they end up with a shot like this, because you've got very tunnel vision really when you're looking through a viewfinder, especially when there's a fairly interesting subject in the middle. Some of you perhaps have only seen the flower and you haven't even noticed there's a butterfly on there, as you, what do you call it, a brimstone butterfly on there. And it's a shot that I took when I was approaching the butterfly, hoping that it might stay there, but it didn't. It's the one shot I got, and off it went. But when you're looking through a viewfinder, it's very easy to get very fixated really on the subject that's perhaps right in the middle, and you think you're closer than you really are, and then you end up with a photo like that, and you look at it and you think, well, it's not really what I thought I was taking, or it's not how it looked at the time, and it's perhaps a little bit disappointing. And certainly if you've got a macro lens, it will allow you to focus right in close. You can get a lot closer. Something like that, you can see what the subject is for a start. It's definitely a butterfly. You can see little hairs and things around its head. You can see the individual scales on the wings as well. You don't always want to get in that close. Sometimes you want to go in a bit closer, but I think it's still important to think about composition. It's very easy when you're shooting macro, especially when you first get your macro lens, to try and get in closer and closer all the time. But a macro lens will allow you to do that, so you can get much closer, so you can just see the faces. I use this as the next step on here because I've got 3 butterflies, and they've got one that's too far away, one that shows the whole thing, and then one that's much closer. And the more I look at this, the more thoughts I see. So we'll skip past this one a bit quicker. But as I say, just a bit closer than normal is really what I do a lot of the time. Approach. If it's a live subject that potentially is going to get scared away, I use a particular technique for getting photos as successfully as possible. What I'll do, certainly for a dragonfly or a butterfly, something like that, I'll take a picture from a distance just to get a record shot so I can actually ID it in case it happens to be a rarity, you never know. But it also starts to give me an idea about what the exposure is likely to be. And then I'll start to also think, you know, this angle's not particularly good, you've got a very messy background here, you've got you know, sort of leaves and shadows and all that sort of thing. Not ideal there. So I came round to the side. So shooting from the side, exposure for this was f5.6, 250th of a second at ISO 200. This particular camera, 200 ISO was the lowest it would go. It's my first SLR.